Hey guys, I hope you're having a good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're watching this, I hope you're having a good day. So this is a little bit different setup than I usually use, but I've just got my webcam rolling with a microphone, and I thought I'd answer a few questions. Now, I have not been doing as many big eating challenges lately, and that's just because I've got a couple of races coming up, and I want to make sure that I got my body all set and good to go. And those big eating challenges do really affect my athletic performance. So a couple of questions that have come up in the comments. Do you track your weight? No. Do you track your macros? No. Do you track your protein? No. Do you track your calories? No. All right, that was fun. Thanks, guys. Oh, hold on a minute. No, that was that was way too short for video. So I wanted to get to one question that comes up every now and then, and a lot of the food reviews that I do, especially with supplements, I mentioned that I do not eat artificial sweeteners. And some people have asked, well, what's the deal with that? Why exactly are you doing it? So I wanted to talk about artificial sweeteners, and for those that don't know, that includes sucralose, saccharin, isoflavonoid potassium, and aspartame. And those go by a couple of different monikers. With sucralose, you tend to see it as either sucralose or Splenda. Saccharin tends to show up in things like toothpaste and mouthwash and a lot of medical things, over-the-counter drugs. And you'll see it as sodium saccharin, or if it's in foods, then it just typically goes by saccharin. Isoflavonoid potassium is kind of a mouthful to say. You'll also see it as ACE-K or ACE-potassium or something like that. And aspartame is really the one that I think is probably the worst, and it probably has the most insidious history behind it. So what exactly is aspartame? Why do I avoid it? Why do I avoid all artificial sweeteners? So studies have shown that aspartame is bad, but these studies are a little bit weird. They've shown that it's bad if you eat the equivalent of 10 pounds of aspartame a day, which is ridiculous. So obviously that's fine, right? There's no need to avoid it. Well, it turns out that a lot of the studies that showed that artificial sweeteners, especially aspartame, aren't bad were funded by specifically Monsanto. And Monsanto is the big evil company in America that pretty much everybody hates. And Monsanto, not only funded these studies, but it turns out that they were also the sole provider of aspartame in the United States for many, many decades. So what about these studies? Why were they so flawed? Were they really worth looking at? Well, I don't know. I mean, one thing is that these studies were all done with mice, and it turns out that mice are not just tiny little humans, so it would have been a lot more compelling if they had done follow-up studies with the effects of aspartame and other artificial sweeteners on actual humans instead of just mice. And back then, when they did these studies, it was in the 1970s and 80s, there wasn't a whole lot of knowledge of the gut biome and the bacteria in your stomach and in your intestines. And it seems like knowledge of your gut biome and what's going on inside of you is becoming a lot more mainstream, and a lot of people are realizing that not all bacteria is bad bacteria. So it turns out that these studies that showed that if you eat tens of pounds of aspartame a day might have a little bit of increase in colon cancer. Well, it turns out that maybe there was a little bit more to it than that. So aspartame might not cause colon cancer, but it might have other bad effects. Sticking a thumbtack in your eye also doesn't cause colon cancer, but I'm not going to start doing that. I mean, that would be ridiculous. So you can't find the negatives of artificial sweeteners if you don't actually know what you're looking for. And I think that's the big takeaway there. So it turns out that artificial sweeteners in some of the later studies in the last 10 or 15 years or so have shown that they're really toxic to a lot of the bacteria inside of your gut and inside of your intestines. So it turns out that artificial sweeteners have an effect on your gut biome that's very similar to antibiotics. And this can cause things like gas and bloating, and it turns out that something like 3/4 of your immune system is in the lining of your intestines. So it can really affect your immune system. It can cause indigestion, it can cause constipation and diarrhea. That's right, that's both ends of that spectrum. And it turns out that also artificial sweeteners, well, I don't think there's anybody that's going to convince you that artificial sweeteners have any health benefits. The only thing that they're good for is for changing the taste of your food and not making anything healthier. So at the end of the day, I would be really interested to see if there are any medical studies on artificial sweeteners, especially aspartame, in the last 10 years that has not found that they have an adverse effect on the bacterial populations inside of your gut. really the only important thing when it comes to the effects of artificial sweeteners or anything is how it affects you specifically. And I decided a couple years ago to do like an elimination diet where I just took everything that had any artificial sweetener in it, just removed it from my diet, ate very clean for a couple of weeks to see if it would improve, you know, the way that I felt, the way that I functioned, everything like that. Well, it turned out that when I removed aspartame from my diet specifically, after about a week, I mean, it was like a night and day difference. Like I just felt 100% better. So I decided to try, you know, having a couple of diet sodas, or the thing that I really enjoyed were those calorie-free powdered drink mixes, like Crystal Light. So I'd have a couple of those, and I found out that I just felt horrible. I felt awful. You know, and I got rid of them, and all of a sudden I'd feel better. So it's pretty clear that there was the connection, that aspartame was specifically what was causing me to feel so bad. So I got rid of it, and all of a sudden I'm able to run faster, I'm able to recover better, I'm able to think more clearly, everything like that. It was just great. So that's the main reason that I've gotten rid of aspartame, in particular in my diet. Now when I got rid of things like sucralose, saccharin, and Ace K, I noticed a little bit of a difference. Like I noticed that I was going to the bathroom a little bit more regularly. Those aren't quite so bad. I still get rid of them because, like I said, there's absolutely no health benefit that's associated with them. So getting them out of your diet can only be good, right? All right, well, I hope that you guys found this a little bit interesting. Maybe you learned something today. Maybe you think that I'm just full of garbage. Who knows? If you guys have any other questions that you'd like me to address, of course, you can leave them down in the comments. You can send me a tweet on Twitter. You can follow me on all my social medias to see what kind of athletic shenanigans or food eating shenanigans I'm getting up to. So until next time, peace out. I promise you that I'm actually ending the video this time. All right, I'll catch you guys later.